God gives us the gift of children to remind us how He wants us to be. Unless you are like a child, you know you miss the kingdom. You miss out on it. That childlike, because you know what kids have? They've got amazement and wonder, and everything they learn is wow. And we go, So that's what we're going to talk about today. Actually, being good enough. We're going to continue our More series here this morning. And scriptures from Revelation, we'll hear it during the message. It's chapter 3, and it's verses 14 to 22. Some very comforting words I'm sure you're going to enjoy from Revelation. So anyway, we've been talking how to enjoy more out of all aspects of our lives, and how to create a culture of more, a culture of increase in our spiritual lives, right? And we've all been paying attention closely and hanging on. So today I want to talk to you about this attitude that we can encounter in many areas of our lives. And it's an attitude that says, good enough is good enough. And right in the middle, you know, that's kind of not a bad place to be. Everything you do doesn't have to be perfect after all, right? It's best to just settle for what you got and let it go at that. And you see that attitude in businesses with their product and their customer care that's just barely good enough to keep the doors open, but never good enough for them to be on the Fortune 500. And you see it in marriages where one or both partners do only enough that's necessary to keep the relationship afloat and keep the lawyers out of it. You see it in sports franchises where teams and fans settle in year after year for second and third place, and their attitude is that that championship may be out of reach, but at least it beats being last. I see it in people in recovery. They say, hey, at least I'm not using, I don't need to go to meetings or work the steps. I don't need to change my behaviors. It's good enough that I'm clean and sober. And you see it in the church. You see it in the church. That attitude that says, well, good enough is good enough. You know what? We're in a comfortable place. Attendance isn't bad. We're paying our bills. We have a pretty pleasant fellowship. If a new family comes and wants to join us and they're able to fit in, fine. But there is no point in exhausting our resources to seek the lost and lonely and the disenfranchised in our community. There's so much trouble. And besides, things are pretty good the way they are. That's a temptation that every church needs to be aware of and be guard against. It's an attitude of complacency. An attitude that says good enough is good enough. Let's just keep things the way they are. And it is the temptation of every believer. And you need to be on guard against complacency. That attitude that says, my goal is to spend as much time as possible coasting my way through life. Breaking a sweat only if it's absolutely necessary. In every area of our life, we have got to guard against the sin of complacency. You know that attitude that I've heard so much that says, well, that's good enough. And good enough is good enough. I feel really sad for people. And this is not a new phenomenon. It's been a struggle of churches and individuals throughout history. In fact, it can be traced back to the very early church, the church of the New Testament. And today we're going to look at an example of a church that's just like that. And we're going to hear what Jesus told that congregation about the steps that they need to take in order to get out of that lethargic, complacent mindset. And his words apply to churches today as well as to families and marriages and individuals, which means that his word applies to us today, applies to you today. Our text is from the book of Revelation, like I said. And parts of Revelation deal with the end times and the apocalypse and all that. But we need to also remember that this church is also written for the edification of the early church. It's a teaching for the early church. And so there's parts of it that have nothing at all to do with the end times and everything to do with how we can be more faithful followers of Jesus Christ. And that's what we want to do, isn't it? Be more faithful followers of Jesus Christ. So Revelation is written by the disciple John. He wrote the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. But in this book, John has a supernatural encounter with the risen Christ. And Jesus speaks some things to John and tells him to record them. In chapter 2 and 3, Jesus sends a message to the 7 key churches in the area, challenging each of them to be moving forward in the Christian life. There's more. He says, there is more. And today, we're going to look at how that applies to the churches today and to us. And in one of these messages, it's his last message that Jesus spoke, is to the church at Laodicea. Listen, here is verse 14. To the angel of the church in Laodicea. Laodicea write, these are the words of the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the ruler of God's creation. I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot, and I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot or cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. You say, I'm rich, I've acquired wealth, and do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire, so that you can become rich, and white clothes to wear, so you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes, so that you can see. Those who I love I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest and repent. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him and he with me. To those who overcome, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I overcame and sat with my Father on his throne. Those who have an ear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. I hope it's clear to you that from that reading, Jesus means business. Okay? Jesus is not joking. He's serious about what he says, and he wants us to take him seriously as well. This last phrase in verse 22, those who have an ear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. This is Jesus' way, in effect, of saying, there is some symbolism in my words, and you need to dig in and pay attention so that you can learn from what I'm saying today. He's saying, don't miss this. Jesus is talking to us about the sin of complacency. The sin of being lukewarm, neither hot nor cold. And it's interesting that he says in verse 15, I wish that you were just one or the other. Can you believe that? He would rather that you be ice cold than lukewarm. Why is that? Because, I'll tell you why. A complacent heart is the most difficult heart to reach. In today's message, I want to look at what it means to be lukewarm so that we can recognize the attitude in ourselves. And then I want to consider what Jesus says that we need to do to conquer complacency once and for all. So if you've been a little bit too comfortable with the idea that good enough is good enough, today's message is going to challenge you to break out of the middle and make your move to the mountaintop. Because, my friends, there is more. There is more. First, let's look at the struggle with the sin of complacency. There's 3 quick characteristics I want you to know. Think about yourself as we talk about them, okay? The first characteristic, no passion. Have you ever noticed that you can go into any coffee shop today and you can order steaming hot coffee and fresh cold brewed coffee, iced coffee too? But you never see up there, today's special, lukewarm coffee. Huh? That's because we all know that lukewarm coffee doesn't taste very good. Or even worse, I can tell you, room temperature Diet Coke has lost its fizz. And it is not good. When you accidentally sip some lukewarm Diet Coke, or any soda that lost its fizz, or lukewarm coffee, what do you want to do? Spit it out of your mouth. That's exactly what Jesus wants to do with complacent Christians. He said, verse 16, so because you're lukewarm, neither hot or cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. And that Greek word for spit is a whole lot stronger than just what you're thinking. It's actually spit, vomit, regurgitate you out of my mouth, get rid of you. Jesus is talking about having an attitude that is just a little bit bored with everything. No fire, no enthusiasm, no excitement for anything, just meh. Every church and every believer needs to find their passion. You need to find that goal, that ministry, that objective that sets your blood racing through your veins and gets you excited about life and all that it has to offer. So the first characteristic of complacency is no passion. How's your passion? What are you passionate about? Second characteristic is no vision. Or maybe you could say no ambition, no hunger, no drive. Listen to what Jesus says in verse 17. You say, I am rich and I've acquired wealth and I don't need a thing. He's not talking about having a proper attitude of contentment and where we're saying that, oh, I have Jesus Christ and I need nothing else. I've got Jesus. No, he's talking about an attitude of smug self-satisfaction. One that says, you know what, I got me, I don't need anything else. There's a sense in which we need to be driven by the concept of more. More. You know, people, I have God in my life, but I need more of His presence. I do work for the kingdom, but I need to accomplish more for His glory. I love my family, but I need to love them even more. And I need to serve them even more. Every day. The sin of complacency tells us, though, well, you know what? You're fine the way you are. Right there in the middle. So you can pat yourself on the back and relax. There's no need to push yourself to do more or be more than you already are. Over the years, I have seen Christians become complacent with where they are in their spiritual lives, and I've seen churches become complacent with their ministry. And as a result, they lose their hunger. They lose their drive. They lose their ambition. And they lose their identity and their impact on their community for Jesus Christ. And that leads me to the third characteristic, which is no clue. You're clueless. Jesus said, verse 17, but you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. He's saying that lukewarm people stumble their way through life, self-satisfied, and at the same time, clueless about what's happening to their lives. That is why those who are complacent tend to be so condescending as well. Since they're not evaluating themselves according to the biblical standards of holiness, they fool themselves into thinking that they're much better than they really are, because the standards they're using aren't the ones that would make them be any better. And so they see their shortcomings, they see the shortcomings and deficiencies, not in themselves, but in everyone else. Churches become smug and self-satisfied as they begin to think that they're better than all the churches in town. And when another church begins to expand or starts a new ministry or an outreach, the complacent church will tell you how everything that they're doing is wrong. And there are believers that are the same way. They have this attitude that since I don't need to worry about me, since I'm good, I don't need to worry about me, I'll just meddle in everyone else's business and pass judgment on everything they're doing. That's the real danger of the sin of complacency. It causes us to demand less from ourselves and more from others. It causes us to see ourselves higher than we ought to be. And we see others lower than they certainly deserve to be. We all have to deal with this sin of complacency. This tendency and the temptation to settle for life as a lukewarm Christian. What are we thinking? But it's not a battle that we have to lose. That's because Jesus showed us how we can overcome the sin of complacency. So if you find yourself becoming a little bit lukewarm in the Christian life, there's a way to get the fire back. There's a way to get your fizz back. It involves three quick things I want to point out. Let's first of all reconsider what matters most in life. Jesus told the church at Laodicea that they were poor and pitiful and blind and naked. And then he says in verse 18, I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in fire, so you can become rich, and white clothes to wear, so you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes, so that you can see. There's a reason that Jesus used those three examples. The salve, the clothes, and the gold. Because Laodiceans would understand his reference. He mentioned gold because Laodicea was known throughout the world as a wealthy community. And it had actually become a banking center. So he mentions white clothes because Laodicea was famous for the manufacture of black woolen coats made from the sheep. And they even used that name to name the city. And he mentions the salve for your eyes because right near Laodicea was a world-renowned medical school that produced this powder. That when you mix the powder with oil, it became an ointment, and it was known to heal and cure eye diseases. So Jesus is saying, in effect, that life is about so much more than all these things that define your life in Laodicea, or Flora, or wherever you might come from. Life is about so much more, he's saying. You need to consider what wealth really is. And it has nothing to do with money in the bank. You may be proud of your designer woolen coats, but you need to consider how you can be clothed in robes of righteousness. And even more than this salve that is used around the world to heal those deteriorating eyes, you need to pursue a deeper kind of healing, he's saying. The kind of healing that goes soul deep and cleanses you from that sin of self-righteousness. You need to reconsider, Jesus is saying, what really matters most in life. And what really matters most is a personal relationship with God through his Son, Jesus. The first step to reconsider what really matters most in life. And the second step is to recommit your life to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. We did that kind of today. That song that we were singing is our creed. That's a commitment, this is what I believe. He said in verse 19, those who I love I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest and repent. When we make mistakes, okay? And some of you I know have made a couple. But when you do make a mistake, and by mistakes I mean sins, Jesus doesn't send you away on your own. Get out of here. Get away from me. But he loves you too much to let you stay where you are too. He can't let you stay there ruining your life with self-destructive behavior. So he calls you on it. Jesus calls you on it. He rebukes you. In his word, he reveals the things you need to do to change your sinful selves. And when necessary, he also disciplines us. That word discipline means correct. He corrects us. So that's not punishment. It's about teaching us to do the right thing instead of doing the wrong thing. Instead of living a life of so much less, it's about moving us on to so much more. And we resist. And we resist that. And then Jesus says, be earnest. Some translations say zealous. And repent. Repent means what? To do an about face, to turn away from it. It means to recommit ourselves to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. It means that we say, Lord, I realize there are things about me that need to be changed. And I am ready for your Spirit to do that work in my life. Because I can't do it on my own. I need you to help me do it. It means we say, Lord, I don't want to live life anymore as someone smug and self-satisfied, never rising above room temperature. I am ready for my heart to be filled with fire. I am ready to hunger and thirst after righteousness. I am ready to hold myself to a higher standard of holiness. Holiness is just faithfulness to him. That makes you holy. Not that you're better than anybody else. If you want to conquer the sin of complacency, you need to, every day of our lives we need to recommit ourselves to the Lordship of Jesus Christ because we need it. It's what he asks us to do. And there will be more. And here's the third step and the final one. You need to reconnect with Jesus every day of your life. Continuing that same thought we were just talking about. In verse 20, Jesus said, here I am, I stand at the door and knock. Can you hear him? If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with them and they with me. You know, I always thought that verse was addressed toward non-believers, that it was about salvation. And while that's true, non-believers can certainly respond to the invitation of Jesus at any time. This verse is specifically addressed to those who already consider themselves Christ followers. And he says, verse 20, I stand at the door and knock. I stand at the door and knock. I have noticed so many times we go about our daily lives and we try to leave him on the other side of the door. Because we have this attitude that, Lord, I don't need you right now. Things are cool. I got this. I can do this by myself. People don't think they need God when they think they are God. And Jesus says, in effect, but if you will just open the door, I will come in and I will fill your life with my presence. We will fellowship together. We'll eat together as friends. And I'm going to be your constant companion. This step, then, is the most difficult part and the most important part of overcoming the sin of complacency. That discipline. Because his presence, this is why it's so important. His presence drives out everything that isn't good in your life. If you look online, you can find instructions for how to evacuate air out of a jar. And it involves a pump that you hook up to a jar and seal the top, and that jar becomes a vacuum. And it sucks all the air out of the jar. But you know what happens when you open the jar? What? It fills up with air again, right? But there's another way to get air out of a jar. Do you know how? Fill it with water. Fill the jar until it's overflowing. And as the jar is filled with water, it pushes out the air because the water has taken its place. This is my point. If there are things in your life that don't need to be, sinful attitudes, sinful thoughts and actions and habits, the best way to get them out of your life is to fill your life to overflowing with the presence of Jesus. He stands at the door and knocks. And he wants to come into your life and literally spend the day with you. If you have a tendency towards complacency, if your spirit is a little lukewarm, Jesus will ignite the fire in your heart and will burn in you and restore your passion for as long as you live. Jesus ends his message to the church in Laodicea in verse 21. And he says, to those who overcome, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. Jesus is talking symbolically here. When we go to heaven, of course, we're going to stand before his throne, not ours. But what he's saying is this. The one who overcomes, and by the way, overcomes, what are we talking about? Complacency, a lukewarm spirit, to the one who overcomes, you will reign in victory, just as he did through his resurrection. You will reign victorious. He says you will reign victorious. That's why Paul said in Romans 5:17, how much more will those who receive God's abundant provision of grace and of the gift of righteousness reign in life? What he said, how much more those who receive more will reign in life through one man, Jesus Christ. This is what God wants for his church. This is what God wants for his people. That we reign in life. Not that we merely settle for a cozy little spot in the middle where we congratulate ourselves and criticize everyone else. He doesn't want you in the middle. He wants you moving your way to the top every day of your life. He wants more for you and for him. So how do you move to the top? You answer the door. You invite Jesus in. And you spend the day with him. All day. Every day. What you will find is that more of Jesus in your life means more of everything that matters. I will tell you, you will never be content with a little spot in the shade, a little money in the bank, and a fine woolen cloak. But more of Jesus in your life moves you toward more of everything that really matters. Through him, any tendency toward complacency is replaced by the fire of the Holy Spirit and a passion for the life that he's called you to. He has called you to a life and offered you a life. You answer that call. And that life that he's called you to will be reignited. And it will be a life that is filled with so much more. Thanks be to God. Amen. Let's pray. Gracious God, we are so foolish sometimes and we settle for the middle of the road and we settle for comfort and complacency. Help us to overcome that complacent spirit, to be critical of others and self-satisfied with ourselves, that we may truly show and experience so much more in our lives, so much more of you. So we pray now that we would hear and receive this message, that you would remind us throughout the week. Lord, we hear you knocking, and I pray that each and every one here today will open the door